After the success of Amnesia: The Dark Descent, Frictional Games wanted to capitalize on the game's popularity by working on some sort of new content set within the world of Amnesia itself, and a year later in 2011, they had a meeting with a Dan Pitchbeck of Chinese Room Games, and a plan began to form for a project initially intended to just be a small mod for The Dark Descent, or an add-on as such. But the two parties agreed that a full-on game would be better set to achieve the product that they wanted to create, and also get more money because hey, you can sell a whole other game that way. Development for this mod or game began in December of 2011 and was originally set to release within Halloween of 2012, which, fuck me, we did not get them like we used to, where we'd have less than year development cycles and they would come out like that. Now we're lucky if a game is made in 3 years. But like everything, it was delayed and, I quote, due to overwhelming response and to meet expectations of the fans. And yeah, this game was then pushed to Q2 of 2013, which is, yeah, pretty standard delay. Not the early 2013 that people were expecting after the Halloween announcement, but it's not bad. And in May, co-founder of Frictional Games, Jen Nielsen, stated in a quote that, "We will not make Q2 2013. We also know when the game will be ready for launch. We have not set the exact day yet. We can, however, make good use of the weather outside this summer and look forward to gaming with the piggies as the summer comes to an end." Yeah, that's not what you want to hear. Whenever a game development company says like, oh yeah, we don't know, enjoy the time that you have now, it basically means there's some sort of development problems, and it does seem that A Machine for Pigs had some sort of development issues in general. I don't know if it's because the studio wasn't super familiar with the engine that they were using, or the game itself, or the product just wasn't up to snuff with what Frictional Games wanted, but the game was delayed yet again from Q2 2013 to sometime later, and they didn't even bother giving a date because they couldn't even guess. The game seemingly was further away from being done than people probably imagined. But the game did eventually get its final release date in August, which was September 10th, 2013, and it did make this date, which is good, and almost a year past the initial planned release date for the game, meaning it probably was significantly over budget if I had to guess. So before we dive into the game, this is what was the reception for it. It was mixed overall. Some really liked it, some hated it, some just thought it was a bit meh, but the game was not the first Amnesia game, which is kind of what you'll gather from initial reviews for this game. But this game very much was a 7 or 6 across the board amongst most review sites, so it's not a bad game per se for reviewers. It did okay, but when you look at something like The Dark Descent, which got 8s across the board and 9s, some people give it a 10, I personally would probably give it a 10 if I had to say. It's worse. It's very much worse reviewed, and it kind of creates sort of a mystique about this game. Machine for Pigs is definitely not as popular as The Dark Descent. You definitely don't hear as many people talking about it, but something I've seen recently is a lot of people saying that it is a underrated hidden gem. No one understood this game. Everyone unfairly treats it, but I feel like when people do this, they often look at the game with rose-tinted glasses and don't look at the game for its whole package. So let's dive into A Machine for Pigs and explore this game fully to figure out if Machine for Pigs works as a good sequel to The Dark Descent, and most importantly, is a good, effective horror experience. Now, when you make a game in the same franchise, there is a certain expectation that that game, specifically the one after the first one, is a significant improvement from the last game, or at least the same level of quality. You take what worked in the previous game and you improve it and add some new stuff to it. This is basically the textbook way to make a good sequel. Games that don't do this often are sort of not liked as much. The biggest example I can think of is something like Spider-Man 2, which came out a few years back. It didn't do enough in my eyes and many other people's eyes to significantly improve the franchise in general. It's a good sequel, it does its job, but it just doesn't do enough. So this is kind of what you expect from a sequel. We expect everything that we like from The Dark Descent to return and be strengthened even more, and we expect some new stuff to come in and basically help to push the boundaries forward for what an Amnesia game can be. So did Amnesia: A Machine for Pigs actually do this? I'm going to spoil it now. No, it didn't. This game started as a mod, so looking at it as a sequel or another entry in a game franchise that can stand alongside The Dark Descent itself isn't exactly fair. This game needs to be looked at as a mod or an expansion to The Dark Descent. For fuck's sake, the game's half the length as The Dark Descent, but this game does also do a lot of things which I view as not good things to do, especially for even a mod for The Dark Descent. And before I get too ranty, I think we should really get into the story first, because this is the most positive thing that the game often is said. It has a great story, so let's get into that first. We open the game getting a quote from Dr. Samuel Johnson, a man famous for his work in literature in real life, and also some of you might know his many famous portraits. He who makes a beast of himself removes himself from the pain of being human. Basically, the quote explains people will be self-destructive in order to escape emotional pain within their lives, an aspect which was present in Amnesia: A Dark Descent.
Daddy, please don't kill me.
And we fade into a man obviously having a nightmare, waking up in his bed with a gate on it swinging open, and scattered about the room are a couple of empty booze bottles. This is a man plagued by something within his life which seems to be linked to the machine itself, which we just saw, and his children also seem linked to the problems he's having, hearing these hallucinations and seeing them running about the house. He feels guilty for something, like Daniel was, being plagued by nightmares and using booze to escape said pain, whereas Daniel used other methods. And on the desk, a diary entry. June 24th, 1899. In my dreams, I see a man dressed in jaguar skins and feathered like a blooded saint. What came from the heart lubricated us. It crushed evil under its tread and liberated us all. The foetid heat of the jungle mirrored somewhere behind my forehead. My temple pounds. The blood boils in my skull. It feels as if there is something alive there. A rat? A damn rat, gnawing through my brains, eating its way out into the world. Even the laudanum will not quell its endless hunger. I hear my children playing in the attic, but it fills me with terror, not love. What desperate thoughts are these? This entry reinforced what we just saw. The man we are playing as is plagued by these nightmares, but more specifically dark thoughts, which he refers to as a rat gnawing its way out into the world. But he has kept it hidden from the world itself, and the presence of his children, plural, fills him with terror, not love. I wonder why this could be, and why are they playing in the attic more specifically? Now, something I immediately noticed about this game is the lack of many features present in the first Amnesia game. Most items, for example, are not interactable. You cannot pick up most items in this game, so there isn't a lot of cool puzzles utilizing items which you can pick up and throw. The best example I can think of in the Dark Descent is where you can pick up an item and throw it out a window to break it, to basically make your way into another room which is blocked off, which kind of limits the game's potential in a sense. Putting the attic access down, we can now ascend into the attic and we can now find the lantern.
What the oh, children, I hate children.
Yes, the same thing that we used in the Dark Descent, and there's a problem with this, and let me rip into this.
Hold on. Wait. Is there no oil? If there's no oil, this is a really bad game.
Yes, a machine for pigs completely removes the aspect of managing items and equipment, so there's no oil or tinderboxes. And now you also have unlimited light from your lantern. So you may be asking, how does sanity play into this game like it did in the Dark Descent? How do you go insane if you have unlimited light? See, that's the neat part. You don't go insane. There is no sanity meter in this game in general. The mechanic I adore so much from the Dark Descent, the one feature that made it completely stand out compared to other horror games in general, a machine for pigs completely rips out and doesn't replace it with anything whatsoever. In my eyes, a follow-up game should never make the experience worse in general, and Machine for Pigs immediately has told me this experience is going to be worse because it removes many of the features I liked. Managing items, which I adore in survival horror games, is a reason reason why Resident Evil was one of my favorite game franchises in general. I love being able to manage items, and my management of items allows me to be better suited for certain situations if I do it correctly. This realization was the exact moment I began to sour on the game immediately, realizing it was going to be a lot of reading, walking, and doing puzzles, and not having a single item to manage. For fuck's sake, there is not even an inventory screen. What the fuck? Survival horror games to me are made so much less tense in general if you're not under the threat of running out of resources. The best equivalent I can make to this to give you an example of what removing the oil actually does to this game, imagine if in Resident Evil, when you first grab your gun, you never have to reload it and you never run out of bullets. That is basically what this lantern is. It is basically easy mode. You've removed the entire point of the game of Amnesia, and it's basically not scary now, and this is a problem that the Machine for Pigs will definitely have. It is not as scary as The Dark Descent. It is not as good atmospherically, it is not as good jump scary, it's not even as good at making you feel like shit either. To me, it is a significantly worse product for this reason. The fact that you have unlimited lantern oil tells me this straight away, that this game is not going to punch as hard. And hey, would you look at that, the games are the exact same price on fucking Steam, so it's kind of fucking shit because you can't not compare these games now because the developers sell them for the same price, which I think is a bit fucked in my eyes. Anyway, continuing on in the attic, we can find all the children's diary entries.
Daddy says there won't be a Christmas this year. He is much too busy. Nanny says we must not disturb him. He is ever so busy. He is gone for work before she wakes us, and often we are asleep before he returns. We found a bird in the garden with a broken wing. We gave it to Nanny, who said it was a filthy thing and hit it with a rolling pin. Later, we crept downstairs to bury the body when everyone was asleep. There was a pig in the garden. We heard it snuffling about. Then Daddy came and said we had to come inside straight away. He was furious, but we think he'd been crying again.
Well, it seems the father is rather distant, and the children seem to be learning the wrong lessons in general about life, with a bird being called a filthy thing and their dad seemingly struggling mentally quite badly. But the children mention a pig in the garden snuffling about. A pig in London? Surely not. Well, it is the Victorian era, so maybe. There was a lot of farm animals within London during this era because London used to actually be fucking functional back then, so there just being a pig wandering the streets honestly was not that big of a deal back in the day, especially, but maybe not near a big expensive mansion, but then again it could link to the main protagonist's job, so we'll get onto that. Proceeding further into the attic, the children keep guiding us, eventually leading us to a study room. February 14th, 1899. Yes, he said, I know these ruins. He was a shabby fellow, all rotten with some moldrous disease. I caught him looking at me strangely, as if what he really wanted to know was how I knew of them. Fighting back the temptation to box his ears for the impudence, I simply smiled and told him that my family's library contained intriguing travel books. The illiterate oaf did not understand that, of course. He agreed to lead us anyway. I have told the children, truly, this will be an extraordinary adventure, if those old stones hold the financial benefits I predict. So the father here seems to have taken the children on a bit of travel, and he found a ruins of sort, and the protagonist knows these ruins themselves, with them meeting, in his words, not mine, an illiterate oaf who showed them around the entire ruins, but it does show the classism of the time that this era had, especially the Victorian era, but also the classism that our main protagonist shows. He sees that people that in a lower class are lesser beings in the world itself. Now he also finds a stone here in the ruins that he predicts that contained potential financial benefits, displaying that the man that we play as is more concerned with a bit of dosh than love itself, the love of his children. He cares more about making as much money as possible. And if you know anything about the previous game, leave mysterious rocks where you find them, because God knows what will come with it. Continuing our journey through the house, we enter a hall, and within it we can find another collectible, the phonograph.
You don't mind if I record this, do you? I find it most useful.
Ah, you have one of those wonderful de Martinvilles. No, of course not, my dear fellow.
It's my own design, Professor, along with everything you see.
Most useful. You understand, of course, why the ministry sent me. That they have concerns.
So we get an insight into the main protagonist meeting with someone, and they are talking about a design that the protagonist has come up with, and the other man commenting on the recording device that we're using, calling it a de Martinville, a famous inventor of the technology itself of phonographs, but our protagonist corrects him, stating that the thing that we're using is a design of his own, displaying that the protagonist's intellect is, let's say, educated. He's a man who can design his own creations and technology, and he is able to then implement them in the real world. But as the professor here states, the ministry have concerns about our player protagonist's actions, about something he has been doing or creating, more likely. And within the room,
Fuck me.
And leaving the hall, we eventually come to an office, and within the desk we find another diary entry. November 7th, 1898. The bank is refusing credit. The ignorant swine. I sit alone at night and weep. Once the children and servants are safely asleep, when they cannot hear me. My darling, how I need you now. They say I have squandered my fortune, that my investment in these latest machines has ruined the family name. What? That I was to remain a local butcher? What are these 2 arms compared to the multitude that can be applied without pay, without hire, by adapting the mechanisms we find in the looms and the mills? But if the bank has its way, it will all come to nothing. They come for my house. I swear I will kill them. I will kill them all. I will take my rifle. My rifle.
Yeah, you don't seem to be doing mentally very well.
So our man of the house here is being refused credit from the pesky pigs at the bank, and he is truly losing it, with him weeping long into the night, but trying to hide it from everyone. Obviously a thing of its time where men were not expected to show any sort of emotions of these kinds specifically, but he misses his darling so much. He cannot handle life without her anymore. He has run out of money, and he cannot believe he would have to work a normal job, with being a butcher being the one that he states, looking down upon those that work as butchers, with him stating it would be pointless for him to work as a butcher, and his time would be better suited creating a machine that can do his job for him, never tiring and never having to be paid like he would. But he knows he can't do this due to the bank not giving him any money to create these said inventions. And if the bank get what they want, they will get the house, and if the bank do this, he will answer with violence. We are seeing a man push to his limits here, starting to get at the end of the line here. He is close to having nothing left, and he is very close to seeing life as a very bad thing. In addition to the note, we can also answer the
Telephone.
Hello? Precious eagle cactus fruit. Help us.
precious eagle cactus fruit, while seems like 4 random words put together, is actually what the Aztecs referred to the heart of a being whom they were going to sacrifice. So this game now clearly links to some sort of Aztec mythology and sacrificial things in general. Using the rifle on the wall, we can open up a secret passageway, allowing us to look into rooms through one-way windows and see a rather frightening sight.
Holy shit.
This dawning epoch, this age of reason, an empire grown fat, ripe for the bleeding.
Seems like someone was living here first of all and spying on the family, but a dawning epoch is the beginning of a new era, an era which will take over the fat empire in England, or the world itself in general. Well, exiting the secret passageway now into the house house begins to shake again, and exiting through a door, we get a loading screen, and yes, just like the Dark Descent, we got a couple more quotes to dive into, with the first set being called the Mansion quotes. Well, while these are cryptic in a way, we get our first actual name of the game, Lilybeth Lily Mandus, and the word interred means to place a corpse into something, meaning basically a coffin, meaning her funeral with angels weeping in the whole sorts. Basically, she's dead. She died and people mourned her. But the last quote is intriguing to me. It sounds as if someone is talking to the main protagonist and sounds as if he will help him achieve his goal in fixing the world, removing the nonsense from it, removing the dirty heart from it. Well, that's my interpretation of it. Also 4 galaxy orbs. The orbs in the previous game were said to change dramatically, so could these be these same orbs or maybe something different? Now entering the front great hall, and again them fucking kids are messing with us, and the building begins to shake again. This house is rather large, so whatever is shaking it must be extremely powerful. Exploring the mansion, we find a dining hall and we can hear a rather frightening memory. It sounds as if someone was being murdered, and further in we find a trophy room with some rather exotic animals, displaying the protagonist's rather, let's say, prideful attitude, displaying things that he has killed in a more trophyistic way. Now we can move the bear to find a hidden passageway, which allows us to engage with the main puzzle of the area. Twisting some valves allows us to stop some steam from blocking our path.
Holy.
Yeah, this game does that a lot. It kind of just throws these random jump scares, which in my opinion don't really land. And I hate to say this, but man, at this point I was not doing it for me. The game atmospherically it was not good compared to the Dark Descent. I don't know, I don't find these big old English mansions creepy or anything, because hey, the streets of London are way more scary than these things because we know what's going to be living in here. Probably a very depressed man, some kids and a butler, not whoever you find on the streets at 3 in the morning in London. But we can exit onto the streets themselves and seeing our children running amok. But before heading out, I continue to explore the rest of the rooms in the mansion. And upstairs we can find another one of Edwin and Enoch's diaries. Edwin and Enoch's diary, October 3rd, 1899. Daddy says we're not allowed to play with the animals anymore. We were playing hide and seek with Cook and he came and shouted at us, just as we were going to hide behind Mr. Grumpy Teddy. Cook says it's because of the guns in there, but he always lets us polish them, so it can't be that. Anyway, the room is haunted. If you sneak around there at night, you can hear the ghosts in the wall behind the cases. They are often angry, or that's how it sounds. We think that's why you can hear them rattling their chains and slamming doors and things like that. We don't like it in there anyway. Again, the father is becoming more and more controlling of the children themselves, and the children are talking of ghosts between the walls, but we know that ghosts are not living between the walls. We know someone is living there because, hey, someone was spying on them. Now in the parlor we can also find the next phonograph.
I must say, my dear man, you look awful.
Yes, I seem to have picked up something rather nasty in Mexico.
I do understand what you've been through. A lesser man would have crumbled. Yet you have made all of this. Your great factory, your charities. It is a wonder for one man alone.
It will all be made clear, Professor. But first, a drink.
Seems like we had a rather nasty illness when we returned from our time in Mexico, and it seems that what we awoke with in the start of the game, which I thought we were drunk, was actually our fever. But the protagonist is a man who does a lot of things in general. He runs his own businesses with his factories, he has his own charities, which, yes, is a lot to do on top of his love for inventing, tinkering with objects, and being a father himself. Just outside the parlor, we can find another telephone, which does give us a little hint on what we are doing in this house and what we are searching for.
Mandus, do you know me?
No.
Who are you? Where are my children?
Trapped, Mandus. Far below us. The machine is fouled. It is breached. It is flooded. The bulkheads are down. The children are encaged. If you help me, I can help you release them. Restore the power, Mandus. Drain the flooding and restart the great engines.
How? Where should I go? Hello?
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 So the man on the other side of the line has informed us that our children are trapped and we need to descend into the machine that we created in order to find them and save them from whatever has happened to them. Exploring further, we eventually find a diary labelled December 20th, 1899. I am to have a visitor, the distinguished Professor A. He has come to ascertain my mental well-being after my prolonged absence from the club. But I'm not stupid. He is here to spy for them. When they stalked the Ripper, he was often called to pontificate upon lacerations and missing organs, and now he comes to me to doff and wheddle and my dear sir but you must still grieve and perhaps just a quick look at your engines, the triumph of the age. He knows nothing of loss, nothing of sacrifice, but to refuse, that would simply poke the hornet's nest, invite a swarm of interlopers and thieves. I must entertain this buffoon and submit to his intrusion. Perhaps I should show him the trippery, see whether his stomach, so trained by rummaging in the innards of clumsily dissected whores, is strong enough to stare into the real engines of his golden age. I may even introduce him to Jack, or his sons at least. We have stronger locks on the windows now, and we bring their toys to them. So we had a visit from the distinguished Professor A to basically do a mental checkup due to our protagonist here being absent from a club. What is this club? God knows. But seemingly the protagonist has become quite paranoid, with him believing that the doctor is there just to spy on him, with him making a connection to the Ripper himself, Jack the Ripper, who apparently the protagonist somehow knows. Somehow. But our protagonist doesn't say that he'll meet the Ripper, he says he'll introduce him to his sons as well, and then it's kind of weird, and he says he'll keep the kids inside with stronger locks. It reads a bit odd, but it reads as almost as if the protagonist here is calling himself Jack the Ripper. He's referring to his own kids as Jack the Ripper's kids, because we don't know of any other kids. These are the only kids we know of. So when you do this in any sort of narrative, you're kind of then indicating that to us. So potentially our protagonist here is the man that was Jack the Ripper, and kind of a cool theory if I do add something to myself. And it's something I do like about this game, how it ties in old English tales and things like that into its narrative a lot. No one knew who Jack the Ripper was at the time, so us knowing his sons indicates that we are like another part of him, or he is another part of our personality as the player. Using a secret level, we enter another secret passageway in the bathroom, allowing us to fiddle with some more puzzles. Before leaving the house, we can enter another bedroom with a trail of blood leading us into it.
Hands are bleeding, raw. I scrub and scrub, but the smell will not lift. How can I hold my children with these hands now? How can I kiss them goodnight with lips that have issued such instruction?
We have seemingly done something to make it feel some extreme guilt, with us have physically getting blood on our hands, which you can use as a metaphor for being a guilty consciousness. And we can't look at our children or even kiss them because of what we've done. We can't see ourselves as a father anymore. And on the desk, a poem. Oh Sally, I the doll's catager. Well, now we leave the house heading towards a more industrial area filled with pipes and starting our descent into the machine itself. But first, we hit the town. Hearing
Come and see, Papa. We found an egg. A stone egg.
Silly
a
children,
stone
it's no
egg.
problem,
What could possibly be a stone egg? Not the orb, surely. Okay, and now with some new loading screen quotes, these titled The Cellar. These quotes are rather interesting. The first seems to indicate a disposal of someone, a person who is looked down upon in society as they have a tramp catcher chasing them, and capturing them, they preserve their bodies in a barrel of gin, a very common alcohol during the Victorian era, and it was produced a lot in London during this time as well. Now the phrase turn their bones to jam suggests a complete destruction of the body itself into something completely unrecognizable, showing how far our protagonist here will go to basically hide whatever he's been doing. And the last one reinforces our protagonist being stuck inside with his illness, his fever he got from Mexico. And recovering from the fall, we can find June 3rd, 1899. I realise now that my fear of dirt stems from the disease I contracted climbing the lost jungle temples. It's as if those clean places, so free of humanity's filth, imprinted upon my soul and left it fragile to what I find here. Fear is what keeps us all in our places, and fear of the flesh, the ruin of the flesh, is the greatest of them all. I am sickened, I am ruined, but I will build such machines to contain this plague and heal us all. A new century is upon us. Our protagonist has a fear of dirt itself, which is very upper class, I'll say, which originates from his time that he spent in the jungles of Mexico when he found those temples that he mentioned earlier, where he got the illness from, which he seems is a place completely free of humanity's disgusting traits, and that him interacting with it basically corrupted him because of how disgusting he is. Forgetting that yes, indeed, the Aztecs, the people that made these temples, they were human as well, so technically it's not free of human disgusting rotten filth, because they were made by humans. But fear is a key point he highlights, how it keeps us in our place and protects us due to our fear of being harmed, and he more specifically makes the idea of fear of the flesh, the fear of it being damaged and being unable to protect it and things getting under your skin and basically destroying you from the inside out. He believes such fear ruins humanity, so he believes that he needs to build a machine to remove this plague and this rot from the world and birth a new era. The dawn of a new epoch. Continuing through the cellar, we eventually come across another telephone.
The shaking ground you feel is our attempts to clear the floodwaters. Treachery, Mandus. We were undone. Your children are trapped by this act. You must find them before it is too late.
What do you need me to do? How can I find them?
Always deeper, Mandus. Through the piston room and into the tunnels. Then find the bilge and flush the rotten water. I will help you where I can. But you must be swift, my little friend.
And yes, we finally learn the protagonist's name, Mandus. Unlike the first game where we learned the name immediately at the beginning, it took us quite a while to actually learn our protagonist's name. His name is Oswald Mandus, or as many people know, it's a play on the name Ozymandias. Ozymandias is a famous poem by Percy Bysshe Shelley, and in the poem it describes Ozymandias as not a good king. He's portrayed as an arrogant man, a tyrannical leader who believed himself to be so powerful that he himself could change the world, and it led to him being very cruel and extremely self-centered as a person. And the statue itself in the poem crumbles to nothing, which is meant to hint to us what is going to happen to Mandus. His once great power and place in society, he will fall and crumble and become nothing after what he has done. But we're also given directions on where to find our children, with them being deep below in the machine itself. With more shaking occurring in the next room, we see
Great. Now, the fuck is that thing? Did it just despawn? You're taking a piss.
the man pigs are interesting enemies, but they did not give me a good first impression here, I'll be honest. Anyway, new puzzle with these generators, with us having to replace the fuses themselves.
Bandaged feet and this world on my back with its legs about me. Damn this wretched soul. I am given birth to nothing but machinery.
Mandus only sees his creations as worthwhile additions to humanity. The only thing that he has created that will create any sort of good in the world. A bit fucked for a father to think in general, but continuing the puzzle in the area.
Fucking hell. The banging and clanging ain't gonna make me shit myself. You're gonna have to do something a bit more intimidating than that.
We eventually come to a massive piece of broken machinery.
Hold still, for God's sake, hold still, child. Don't let it get into your eyes. I'm gonna rinse it out now. There. It will be fine. You just need to lie down. Enoch, look to your brother. How many times have I told you not to play in the cellar?
So one of Mandus's kids got something in his eyes down here in the cellar, indicating the two got into a lot of trouble, and God knows what is in all of this machinery. And a new phonograph.
Extraordinary. Quite extraordinary. And you built it all. Good God, man. You have been busy.
It is wonderful how tragedy focuses the mind. What else was I to do? Fall into grief, pine and fade in my hopelessness? Why not then simply die in that jungle amongst those dead temples?
Mandus did not let his grief take over his life. Well, he more or less pushed it away, surrounding himself in work, distracting himself, never allowing himself to fall into grief and hopelessness, as he believed that falling into these two things was worse than dying. Opening a rather interesting looking door, we now enter a new area, the alley. And yes, new quotes labelled the alley. These tell a rather interesting thing. The first describes a public celebration, but there is something off about the celebration itself. The speaker of the quote itself doesn't state themselves it was a celebration. They use a newspaper to basically back up their point. The Times to reinforce it, seemingly displaying a level of uncertainty of the celebration itself. The next one seems to be a bit of a recipe, but turns into something more sinister, with a skeleton key being used within a nursery. A nursery, a place where children are allowed to be innocent and just play. And a skeleton key indicates to us that something that shouldn't be opened is being opened within it. Entering the alley, we find another telephone.
I have such visions to share with thee. If my jaw be unshackled, and you harvest the crust from my eyes, make it clean, Mandus, that my thoughts and words can unfouled be.
Well, sounds like good fun. May 1st, 1899. But then, what if they could stand upright and walk as men? What if the brute we harnessed thus, would they sing? Would they find their own god? I have seen these things, and I will tell you now, no, they will not. But they will happily accept fealty to a god thrust upon them, and worship it thus given. In this I realize they are no different to the masses. They are much the same as us. Once this irrevocable threshold is passed, I understand that we too are shackled and must be set free. To free the man, we cut the man. In order to cross that great evolutionary line, it must first be painted upon the ground. It seems someone is creating some sort of creature, asking the questions if they could make such a beast stand on two legs, if they could sing, or if they could find their own god. A beast whom they will control by thrusting a god upon them, by giving them that god that they will look to for guidance. I wonder if these pigs and beasts they refer to are but a reflection of humankind themselves, people who are basically thrust into the world and told what to do and never really give it their own thought or their own peace of mind about what they're actually doing. And in another desk in a private office just to the side, we find August 22nd, 1899. In America, they talk of building their cities to the skies. To me, this seems folly, but perhaps it is simply a case of a nation founded without a history of its own. We walk upon our histories. They are compacted into the very loam beneath our feet. The engineers we employed talked of this. They talked of how, when building the underground trains, they would often come across older tunnels crisscrossing the capital. What palaces lie buried beneath us? We are digging, excavating and reappropriating what we find. At the center of the planet, my architect tells me, there is a great iron ball. It is the egg of the world. This mentions the history of man being buried beneath our feet, civilizations lost to the shifting of the sand and dirt, stating that if we were just to go and look down, we would find countless structures and tunnels right beneath our feet, and in the top drawer of the desk, some teeth. Interesting. Next, moving out of these offices, we find October 11th, 1899, we integrate the very latest knowledge of chemistry, using low levels of laudanum derivative in feed to subdue the product even before the initiation of the process. This means that when we drag them from their holding pens onto the line, they are less likely to panic and damage the machine components, other products, or themselves. This section of the belt is sheathed in rubber and kept well lit to maintain good spirits, and we have actually found that the intelligent placement of gramophones and simple acoustic amplification tubes around the lines means we can use music to further soothe the product. We find Debussy particularly effective in this regard. This explains Mandus's experiments with laudanum within feed, obviously indicating experiments with livestock, with the said compound causing the animals to be less panicked, making them less of a danger to the machines themselves and other products. Describing living things as products is almost dystopian in a way, in how it's written, but it's a real world thing. Even having a fucking real life musician in place as a good choice to use to basically get optimal results, displaying that they have been doing this a lot and measuring the effects of it. Continuing out towards the street's end, past a small refueling station,
So you can pick up the pig. Woo, yeah! It go round, 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 round.
September 28th, 1899. Imagine, they say, a machine one day that might think like a man. As if this is to be desired, one might almost boast of creating a man who breathes like a pig. Men and women upon all fours, rutting carelessly, ejaculating their filthy little missives, fuck me, into the streets. Alleys and gutters running freely with the careless spills of their conjoinings. The air thick with the whimperings of lust. Bodies streaked with their own emissions. We have created a world where man is so utterly debased, he will spray his seed over passerbys, and yet this is the condition Babbage aspired to. No, this is not the machine we seek. Such an entity should be nothing less than a deity, and we would fall upon our knees and worship it. We shall not carve gods to bicker and fornicate. They will exist to clean the world and set us free. I reject Babbage as I reject these men of government. Let the pigs copulate in the gutters while they can. We shall scoop them up and ease their ascension soon enough. So Mandus sees everyone's desire of a machine which can think like a human, but he, a man who only sees humans for the filthy animals they are, sees this as a terrible thought and describes in a rather quite graphic detail about how humans breed, and with, let's say, less than colourful language. He doesn't seek a machine like a man, he seeks one which is better than us. It should be nothing less than a deity, a god itself, a being that us humans should fall to our knees and worship upon its creation. He believes this god, like machine, will not be doing what us mere humans would do. It will fix us and create a new age for humanity, an age free of the filth that humanity creates. Well, someone woke up on the wrong side of the bed that day, Jesus. In the alley, we also have a little puzzle to do with the truck, so we have to take the tank and then go back to the refueling station that we found, refill it, and then basically take it.
Oh my god, are we actually gonna holy shit, we might actually be chased. Don't you dare tell me it gave up. Please, don't do this to me, I beg. It's a fucking locked door, they can't break locked doors.
Yeah, this isn't a great jump scare in general, I'll say that much. Why? Well, you're in no mortal danger now. While Amnesia the Dark Descent did this as well, you have these like jump scares and things that threaten you which aren't actually really there. But A Machine for Pigs seems to pull its punches way too much, and this would have been a great moment to actually put the first engagement with a pig in, because it would actually give you some sort of feeling of urgency to basically fill up the tank faster and escape this area quickly. At this point I was an hour into the game, and let's say I was less than a bit annoyed, because I feel like there was no threat whatsoever, and I knew this game was 4 hours long, so I knew I was already a quarter of the way through the game, and already the pigs have not threatened me in any way, so I was not scared of them at this point. But hey, replacing the fuel tank into the car, we can now move it, and we get into the church area.
This way, Papa. Come and see. Will it hatch? Can we take it home?
Yes, my darlings. Of course we can take it home.
And now we enter the church itself, a new area with new quotes, so let's go over them real quick. And the first one is a rhyme in which is a bit odd. You have these delicate descriptions of porcelain in China, not the place, the material, and it sounds like it's describing a woman. But then it describes them having trotters, which I don't know if you Americans have this, but pigs' feet are called trotters. Lads, don't describe your missus as a pig as well. It will not go well for you. The next one almost describes man merging with machine, with wires burrowing into the man's ears, becoming a part of him. And the third describes Mandus's feeling of when he saw Lily, the love of his life, that feeling he felt then. For fuck's sake, why do I have to keep talking about love in these videos? Well, the repetition of heart and love and burnt and fire imagery in general indicates that the amount of love that he had was overpowering, almost taking over his entire life, all of his thoughts itself. But it was almost obsessive abusive at times, loving her so much it could cause him actual damage, harming himself. His heart was burnt by it, which we are currently seeing. The loss of this woman, the love of his life, has led him to spiral out of control, obviously indicating that Lily here was Mandus's center, someone that brought him back and kept him stable, and without her, he's kind of lost himself. Or as my dad would say, it was his better half. Now entering the church and inside a study we can find Alright, cool. November 23rd, 1899. Twin candles bent to the will of the central saint, casting their light to the corners of the chapel. Father Jeremiah, I thought, could be trusted with the secret, but he is like all the others. So the old priest has gone to the holding pens with his flock. He says he will enter into our world with them. A shepherd indeed. So it seems Mandus informed a Father Jeremiah about what he was doing, or planning on doing, but when he revealed it to the good father, he started to run his mouth about Mandus to other people. So Mandus took him to the holding pens to enter his world with the flock themselves. What the fuck is Mandus making with the people that he is taking to the holding pens? And what is the machine itself? What is the machine making? And just up the stairs, another phonograph.
Your faith shackles your vision, Professor. It is an iron coffin that keeps you from grasping the future. We require a new deity, one of steam and the wheel, of magnetism and progress. The old god is nothing more than a lamed hog, spitting back offal at mankind.
Basically, Mandus tells a very religious man, your religion is dumb, we need a new religion, showing he truly doesn't understand what Christianity is or what faith is in general, and why people have it. God isn't meant to meddle with the affairs of man, which is often what you hear people asking. Why doesn't God stop all these atrocities that happen? Why did God let all these things happen? Why does God let all these illnesses exist in the world? God gave us free will, and we are meant to be tested in life with this free will to see if we are worthy to join God in heaven. That's kind of the whole point of life. That's the whole point of what the religion is trying to tell you. It's telling you to be a better person than you should be. In life, you always have two choices, good or bad, basically, which, you know, you basically choose one or the other, and you eventually sort of lead down a path where you keep consistently choosing one side. And that determines where you end up after death. But you get the point. Mandus is very lost here. He doesn't understand that faith and religion and gods are not meant to basically completely control humanity. They're meant to allow them to live and experience free will and see if they're worthy themselves to join them in heaven, or they should be banished to hell. But we need to repair a candle to open up a staircase, so we quickly go find that and we open up the staircase, and now we enter the holding pens.
Listen, Papa. Hold the egg to your ear. You can hear the
And we find a note on the desk by the entrance labelled these final thoughts. What exhumation is this? What rotten fruit? What bestitching of parts? I doubt I will ever be found. Yet I leave you this, scrawled in the mulgerous half-light, whilst my tormentor shuffles below, my fellow prisoners keen in squeal in the golem, and where I wait for the knocking upon my cage that signifies it is finally my turn to make that dark journey into the interior. It seems a prisoner was kept here in the holding cells and was waiting for his turn for a dark journey into the machine, down into the interior of whatever thing lies below us. And again, the use of pig imagery with squealing. And we can meet one of these prisoners as well.
Let him out or not? No, but just ignore him.
And heading down, we finally, and I mean finally, get an actual engagement with one of the man pigs. It only took us about an hour and a half. Now, while I've been overall pretty negative on this game, the man pigs are one aspect I actually do like. I like their design and I think they're good ideas. They are pig-human hybrids, or more specifically men turned into pigs, because pig men are pigs turned into men, but man pigs are man turned into pigs. So they're men who are basically transformed into pigs. I like them. They're created through surgery and alchemical procedures, which we have found notes about up to this point, and those held in the holding pens are turned into them. So we understand that the father that Mandus kidnapped will be turned into one of these man pigs. The reason for the man pigs, though, they are created as workers, basically. Workers for the machine themselves, the machine below us. And they will follow whatever order is given to them by the machine itself. And we will learn that the man pigs do have a strong connection to the Dark Descent as well. But getting past the little pig, we can now enter a new area, and yes, new area means new quotes. The first seem to describe a time period on a ship with the crew being confused with the ship unable to move with them drowning in air, a paradoxical statement, but could display how bad their current situation currently is. But someone is acting as a paperweight, holding everyone down, acting as a leader or place of strength for everyone aboard the ship itself. Second displays the workers on the ship obviously doing a lot of singing, something that yes indeed people on boats do a lot of during this time especially, but the constant singing is almost annoying with even when you try to sleep, they are still singing, but it is a strong sign of a collective spirit of the workers, or perhaps, even when they are dead, he can still hear them, with him still hearing them when he goes to lay his head down, something you often hear when someone dies that's close to someone. They say that they can still hear them. And the last quote makes it seem someone is trapped in an industrial life, maybe a factory pulling cogwheels, with this work physically changing him. All of these display a theme of stagnation or transformation, with the first quote displaying the workers on a boat stagnating and being forced to change. A key theme that this game has been exploring, transformation. I mean, look at the pigs themselves, and stagnation, which Mandus sees in humanity that they're stagnating. And now we enter the factory. A factory for what? Well, let's find out. Walking a short distance across a small courtyard, we eventually come to Mandus Processing Company, a factory for processing meat, and more specifically, pigs. Mandus is a butcher, and he's made a massive empire, seemingly, off of his business being a massive meat processing person who just has these massive factories doing a lot of processing. And inside on one of the desks, we can find another phonograph.
These men, Professor, these so-called men of vision, they would shackle the masses to a wheel and turn it till their backs break. All for that opiate, the lure of profit. These fools who lackey them, these priests, these officials, this government, they make pigs of us all.
But what solution, my dear man? How to break a cycle? You cannot simply remove the promise of a better world for these unfortunates. In the workhouses, in the orphanages, the belief in heaven is surely the only succor one can find.
We do not need to wait. We can bring forth paradise now. We can speed the passion. With only a small sacrifice, we can hold the apocalypse. With just a small sacrifice, we can free our shackles and deliver them to paradise now.
Basically, Mandus sees that these men of progression just hold humanity back, exploiting the workers and not improving their lives in any way, shape or form, choosing to break them with labour instead of improving them by removing them from the cycle which they are stuck in. But how do we do this? Well, just like the Aztecs did, sacrifices to the man upstairs. Heading down into the factory, we now see the first glimpses of the machine itself, with us having a little puzzle to do, with us having to get the machine up and running, getting the furnaces burning again. Getting the machine running with the furnaces, we exit and now a man pig is stalking us. We have to outmaneuver the said little piggy, diving deeper and deeper. Eventually finding April 30th, 1899. The crate arrived this morning and I had it delivered directly to the workshop. Body is remarkably preserved, although there is a subtle yet nauseating stench of damp and rot. It is humanoid in shape, but has suffered severe skeletal deformity. Remnants of leather straps encase the torso, which is deformed, with evidence of substantial muscle mass and displacement. It is difficult to ascertain whether this unfortunate is the recipient of some barbarous surgery or was born deformed, and an attempt to force his gnarled body into some semblance of humanity was made. What he is I cannot tell, but I smell the orb upon him, and suspect my great-uncle's presence in his curious condition. So it can be done. We can reshape the body into a tool, accelerate the process of Mr. Darwin's evolution. But here my great-uncle and I part company. He chose men as the subject of his experiments, but men are difficult to control and rotten with sentimentality. No, we require a new creature for our chattels, loyal, clever, strong, and easily sedated. Now this diary entry is the most interesting in my eyes. Mandus got a delivery from his great-uncle, and inside was a body which suffered severe skeletal deformation and substantial muscle mass displacement. But more interestingly, the stench of the orb was on it. The orb, yes, the same orb from the Dark Descent. But the fact that Mandus knows of the orb indicates something to us that potentially the stone egg is one and the same. He knows too well the smell of the orb. Also, if you want to know, his possible great-uncle would either be Daniel or Alexander. If I had to guess, it would be Daniel himself, due to Alexander's family being rather secretive, so we can probably assume that it is probably Daniel as his great-uncle, and inside the box that Daniel potentially sent to him is a creature from the first game, the Gatherers themselves, and these Gatherers will act as the basis for the creatures that Mandus here will create, the Man-Pigs. The Gatherers were entirely loyal to Alexander, so he wants to replicate that loyalty in the creatures he wants to create now, for himself, and more likely the machine itself. Heading further into the machine, we eventually enter the tunnels themselves, which of course, new area means new loading screen quotes. These three all share a common theme of loss and sadness around death, and together they hint towards a level of guilt felt potentially by Mandus himself around his wife Lily, which could be what we heard in the dining hall back in the mansion. Maybe Mandus felt guilty around the death of his wife, specifically believing that he killed her due to them having children, because Lily died due to childbirth complications, and maybe Mandus sees this as him murdering her in a way. Entering the tunnels themselves, ourselves through an elevator. It of course doesn't go entirely to plan, and we basically fall all the way through the elevator shaft with the elevator failing itself. And we black out and awaken on the floor. Exiting the elevator, we get...
Quickly, Mandus, find the entrance nearby. The children weep in the darkness, and the floodwaters continue to rise.
It seems we need to hurry up and get to our children, but first, diary entry. July 15th, 1899. In order to facilitate assimilation of tissue groups, a compound is required, or the cells will not bond. Disposal of non-bonded subjects must be immediate, and using incineration, or we risk continuous animation without form. This is unpleasant. A simple compound of 1 part Brandenburg infusion vitae to 1 part organ mondad dispersal fluid is sufficient. This can then be administered intravenously to subjects following reassembly to maintain bonding. The compound is unstable and highly light reactive. Once in the body, the Schumann lamp can be used to activate the compound, but outside the body is highly corrosive. It can even destroy small quantities of metal. This explains the process of creating the man pigs themselves, utilizing a specific compound which is highly corrosive, which is derivative of Brandenburg's vitae. Yes, we are getting some juicy links now to the previous game. Vitae, for those unfamiliar with the first game, is farmed from animals or humans experiencing high amounts of fear and pain, and Alexander and Daniel in The Dark Descent found that torturing innocent people resulting in the highest yield and most effective method for farming vitae itself, and it is combined with another substance which is new. It's not from the previous game or a real thing, it is just a new substance. But we get to hint that the substance is highly light reactive, explaining why the man pigs don't like our lantern and chase us whenever we flash them with the lantern itself. But now we get to make said substance, which has us run around finding the 2 ingredients while being harassed by
Little pig, little pig.
But we can find another note labelled August 20th, 1899. Took delivery of another batch of imbeciles today. They're the sorriest specimens of humanity I have ever seen. No one asks where they go to. The authorities of Bedlam are simply happy due to the overcrowding in their teeming, stinking halls. We measure their skulls, check their teeth, we give them laudanum to pacify them. They wait in line, livestock, dull brown eyes, and filthy skin. Many soil themselves as they wait. Into the manipulator they file in silence. I hear the hissing gas, I hear the dull groaning as teeth are removed, as bones are reset. I hear the pigs screaming. We have removed all the mirrors after the process. It is their reflections that trouble them the most. Afterwards, when they sleep, I walk amongst them. My children, I whisper. My children, I whisper to their dreams. You are my children now. I have children once again, and your form's imperfect. Will be the engines to make my own blood flow again. And I only want to bring this up because they are describing humans as literal cattle, using methods used by real farms around the world, drugging them to make them more docile and funneling them into machines in which they will be slaughtered. It's almost as if this big machine is a metaphor about the control that higher society has over the working class, and how they view them as, I wonder, pigs.
Over there, place it in the corner. What? You think I speak Prussian? Do I look like an inbred hog, sir? Who gives a damn what it contains? Just set it down carefully and leave me be.
Well, that's not nice, specifically because Mandus does seem to have some sort of familial connection to Prussia, potentially with Alexander or, Daniel, but he does seem to be like a true Brexit geezer. He votes Reform UK. And a little bit further along in this area, we find a rather interesting note, dated more experiments with Compound X. Took the dog and injected it with strychnine. I can't say that. After the expected convulsions spasming, it died just after midnight. I immersed the body in a large tank of Compound X and introduced an alternating current via induction coil for a period of 3.5 minutes. Partial return was induced, however, damage incurred prior to death was retained upon revival, meaning the dog continued in an acute state of strychnine poisoning until I put a bullet in its skull, but drowning, perhaps yes. It is, after all, known to be the kindest of suicide. If one were to drown, replacing the fluid in the lungs of Compound X should theoretically be perfectly possible as a revival method. We get a look into Compound X, a substance which seemingly has the potential to revive living organisms themselves, with Mandus believing that if they were to drown an animal and replace the liquid in the lungs with the compound, they could successfully preserve living animals after death, creating a safe way for revival. And no, drowning is not the kindest of ways to die, if you ask me. It's almost as if he is trying to convince himself that what he is doing is the right thing, and the best method is basically the one that he wants the most, not seeing seeing that the animal he is becoming, the beast he's becoming, he is no better than humans he hates himself. Eventually, finding the two substances, we create the mixture in order to burn the lock off the door, which, with the help of this funny little bendy light, we descend even deeper into the belly of the machine, entering the sewers, and yes, new quote. These all link to the idea of faith and letting go. The first one is a clear reference to Jesus Christ with nails and carpenter and all that. The second one with a temple above the smog, and the last is a bit different. You could relate it to the game's main theme of replacing the current world's problem and fixing them, in quotation marks I guess, with a new thing. Mandus is creating a new plant and taking over the garden wall, a literal thing that he's trying to do in reality. He's trying to replace the current world's problems and basically create a new era. After falling a bit hard and getting up once again, we find ourselves in the sewers of London, and straight away a new diary entry. October 22nd, 1999. Naturally, once bled, the product must be scaled, de-haired and scraped ready for gambroling and evisceration. For this, we pass them through the steam reservoir, which is kept at a constant temperature by passing excess high-pressure venting from the engines, via the boiler and a series of large copper pipes, into a stone chamber just below the workhouse. At the center of the machine, there is a component that must be kept at a consistently low temperature, which controls operations of the processing of product throughout the system. Alongside this, refrigeration is the utmost importance in retaining product quality, and this also requires heat to be removed from certain areas of the machine. Two problems are therefore combined into a single solution: the removal of heat from some areas and the requirements for increased heat in the other. Conducting panels draw heat using the principle of convection regulated by the boiler and the sending freezing air along one set of pipes in one direction and superheated vapors in another. This explains how something is created with the machine, detailing the almost perfect design of the machine itself, using issues created to solve each other, creating a truly perfect closed system. And in the next room,
Isn't it dangerous allowing this filthy discharge to collect so close to the core?
We can use the flow to drive the turbines. There will always be a torrent of excreta flooding through these tunnels. We can use this to supplement the steam production and ensure constancy.
God, the stench! This fecal matter is the true product of the age.
yes, they are using literal sewage to generate power for the machine, using turbines turned by the waste to create electricity. Again, showing how perfectly created this machine is, how methodical it is, how every possible problem that it could have is utilized to full potential. And who is this engineer? Where did he come from? This is the first time we've met him. This game really is not scary. Unfortunately, I just find it funny. The pigs, while I like the design, they walk a bit too goofy in my eyes. But in the study, August 1st, 1899, several of the older forms have breached their containment area and escaped into the sewers. They remind me of my limitations. There is no Chelm and I am no Eliyahu. At least not quite yet. It is the heat generated from keeping the doorway between open that is to blame. We cannot simply pack them about with coolant as we do at the center where the doorway is. The later versions are kept safe by the freezing temperature of those towers. Up here where the air is hot and fetid, they become overheated and their duality tears them asunder. As the other place flies from their cells and their vitae splinters, they live sporadically, torn from one world to the other and back again in violent, unpredictable bursts. For a few seconds, they are creatures of this world. Then they are torn away and cease to have physical form. This vicious ripping back and forth between worlds has driven them quite insane. I have ordered the affected areas sealed and will not allow my loyal workers to enter. These are damned places now, the abode of failed experiments, ghosts of fear and spite. Well, that's not good. Some of the older forms have breached containment, you know. Some of the man-pigs which they've created have somehow got out, and they're not exactly the friendliest of fellows, are they? So that isn't good for anyone. Well, in the sewers we have a set of fun tasks to do. We have to move the waste around in order to allow us to proceed further into the machine itself. So we have to run around looking for some valves and basically drop the water level. But while doing this, we can find another one of the phonographs.
But we can save them. We can set them free. We can replace a rotten old world with a clean new one. Mr. Mandus, you sound every bit the fanatic. Well, how can I be otherwise, Professor? How can any man of ethics simply stand by and watch this world drown in its own excrement? And your engineer, this visionary with whom you have embarked upon this course, does he share your views? Indeed he does. Indeed he does. The poor fellow has seen it all before. Now, this is not the first great civilization he has wept for. And so you set about things immediately upon your return? Naturally. These things cannot be left to rot upon the tree, and sponsors were remarkably easy to find. I tell you, Professor, a trail of greed brings rich men to your door like pigs to truffles.
So basically, Mandus believed he could do the work of God himself, change the world to create a new age for humanity, a world rid of the filth that he saw within the world led by his machine. But his peers looked at him as if he was a fanatic, and even now, he can't help but see the men and women and the companies that have funded his projects as the mere pigs they are. They are the very people he promised some sort of wealth or promised new age, but he wants to remove them from the world just as much as the filthy, poor people that he sees on the streets every day. He believes every man has the nature of a pig. They are all truly filthy beasts. But it's kind of mean. And a little bit further into the sewers, we find a note which kind of explains how Manus believed he would achieve his godly power. February 17th, 1899. And I said, "Look, my darlings, can you see it?" And they said, "Yes, Daddy, yes, we see it. A tall, weathered cap of a steel-sided pyramid, so like those of Egypt, stone falling away from the summit, vines crawling about, intertwining the succo serpents that thrive about the steps, a palpable sense of stillness, a weight of forgotten, and this here. This is where the king sat, and this is where the priests lived. This is the house of the dead, and here, where the sun strikes, this is where they threw their hearts that were not consumed. No, my darlings, they were most certainly not savages. You see, they believed that the sky could fall on their heads, and they truly believed that offering blood was the only way of stopping this from happening. Perhaps, my darling, perhaps they were mistaken altogether. Or perhaps their tragedy was they could simply not spill enough blood to prevent the sky from falling upon them. He would use the Aztecs' old belief of human sacrifices, but he would basically use a human slaughterhouse to ensure he did not make the same mistake as the Aztecs did. He would make sure that he would spill enough blood, something he believed the Aztecs were unable to do to fully fulfill what the gods desired. And all while explaining it to his two boys. What a lovely way to basically spend a family holiday. Continuing the puzzle and entering the mechanical doors, we can see, damn, they're having some good munch down there. And slowly we start to see the extent that these pigs actually have over the influence of this underground area. They are everywhere. Utilizing some pipes, we can drop down even further, entering the Blige, and yes, more quotes. These display the overarching theme of human suffering, and more specifically grief, utilizing the idea of death and the memories that persist even after the fact. And it describes pain associated with death in a grotesque way, an obvious juxtaposition to the pain in reality, due to it being a more mental battle and mental problem, but it displays the feeling clearly that I'm sure many of you have felt. Inside the Blige, we straight away find another phonograph.
You seem to have undergone quite a profound conversion in Mexico, Mr. Mandus.
You could not have seen it yourself and not, Professor. As we disembarked, even through my fever, I saw the detritus of this so-called progress. I saw starvation and disease, rot and destruction polluting the waters of the Empire. We are ruiners, you and I, and all of us, and we make the world unclean.
And you took it upon yourself to act as redeemer.
Professor, I would not be so presumptuous. I am merely a conduit. I am constructing an architecture to wrestle our damnation to the ground and smother it with steam.
We see that Mandus was reasoning his actions, saying he saw the darkest parts of humanity, believing that we should make it a top priority to cut this rot out of our world in general and fix this problem. And with a little puzzle to do with the water and turbines to access the next area, we get to the reactor. These three quotes together create a feeling of obsession, suffering, and industry which all intertwine. It raises the question about what we sacrifice in the name of progress itself. We sacrifice love, efficiency, and the idea of human nature itself. Inside the reactor, straight away, like every other area, we find a diary entry immediately titled March 15th, 1899. Cold into my bunk, all sick and sweat-ridden, they clean my room about me, but I can only hear the voice from within that gentlest of stones. It sings to me, and I dream of a great machine. We will build a new world from the ruins of the old. We will plant flowers in the rotten ribcage, and let them grow to hold the sky from falling. I remember how it whispered to me, as we rolled sick and heaving. And I remember when we pulled into Southampton, and we both wept, for it was every bit as much desecration as had been sung to me. And then we came to London, and I set it upon the mantelpiece, and we went into the house, and gathered the servants, and set on recrafting them. And then I went into the garden, and buried those tiny shattered skulls under the weeping bulges of the rhododendrons. With Mandus finding something and setting it upon his mantelpiece, a gentlest of stones, maybe another part of an orb itself. Descending the large staircase, we eventually are confronted by the machine's full reactor itself.
Jesus, what
God. Dear Christ, what is this place?
With Mandus not remembering the place itself, but we head into a calling room and find another phonograph. And we now prepare the machine to call a compound X and activate the machine.
Now, Mandus, set them free. Set them all free. I live. I breathe again. I rise. I will rise to bleach the sky and still the water. I will spin the world wheel and set the future upon the path to redemption.
Where are my children? You promised me my children!
My time is come. More pig. More pig.
Boys. Boys. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry.
With the machine activated, the man on the other side of the telephone, the engineer, reveals his true intentions, revealing that he had no intention of returning Mandus's children to him. With us hallucinating them, we fade out, and I thought the game ended here. But no, not quite yet. We now enter the engine with brand new. Together these suggest a worldview of where power, intellect, and purity dictate the worth of a person. Without the level of the city, scientific achievement, or human relations themselves, basically it presents a worldview that you have to basically prove your worth to live in it. Awakening.
No, we're not done yet. Not quite yet.
And emerging,
I raised my head to an uncaring sun, and I cursed this world of pain and despair. This civilization built on the ricketed bones of the unfortunate, on the greed and swell of mammon and empire. Cradling a stone egg in my jacket, I kissed my children farewell, and I crawled my way home.
Well, it seems Mandus had some sort of stone, or, if my theory is correct, an orb that we basically encountered in the last game. In a diary entry, 29th December, 1899. Can a man construct himself anew? Can a man, on realizing who he is and what he has become, tear himself apart down to the bricks and begin again? Are our souls just this, tiny cogwheels and clockwork and intricate machines to serve a function that, upon reflection, we might set to a new task? Can a man, defined by his actions, defined by that which he now finds abhorrent, set to sabotaging this body, his machine, until those children of his soul turn in a new motion, and he may awake to a new sun, a new year, a new century with hope in his heart? As I reach my hands to the exposed wires, I ask myself this: is redemption possible for such a creature as I? And if not, then surely better to die amongst my creations than to continue to live as a monster. Reveals that Mandus did go mad, unwilling to remain in a world filled with the filth of man, and wants to create something that will better humanity, even if it means killing himself and all those he loves. Heading up, we find another control booth with August 31st, 1899. Children really are the most wonderful, useful creatures. The unfortunates from the orphanage have proved indispensable in cleaning the largest steam pipes. It appears that matter from the slaughtering process may indeed vaporize at source, but drifts like dust through the air and lodges in the pipes, causing them to foul. Periodically, we shut the pressure down and send one of our pixies into the pipes to scrub the reconstituted fat away. Armed with just a shortened broom, our little explorers venture into the dark. Of course, we can only keep pressure down for a short period of time, so they must be fast, or they risk being trapped and boiled by the superheated vapors. When they rush back into the system, then they will be sending their comrades in after to scrape free the cooling mess. The survivors tell me you can reach all manner of places within the complex through the pipes. I smile, tell them I am so proud, and then feed them to the pigs, which basically shows how disgusting Mandus is as a person. He is no better than those he views as pigs. He uses the children with no care if they die, seeing their sacrifice as a net positive for the machine they are creating. With Mandus angry about being lied to, he sabotages the machine.
What are you doing, little piggy? Do you think I will allow you to sabotage me again?
I want my children, you unholy bastard!
And starts to descend further into the machine to basically destroy it more, searching and hunting the man who has manipulated him with his children.
Will it hurt them?
A cleansing fire always burns, little Mandus, but it purifies and it makes anew. Did it hurt to carve out the fevered flesh? Did it hurt to cut free the gangrenous foot? Ask instead this: can we save them?
When did I say that? That is not me. That is not me.
But with a quick whiteout we find December 1st, 1899. There is a spoon of medicine. I says, "It's a silver spoon what you did get born holding. Ever so painful for mummy dear, but grasped so hard it was a little screaming red fist. Later you used your spoon to dig a hole in the garden to get all the way to Mexico. Then you did eat worms with your spoon on the way to stay fat. This spoon was the same you gave your twins. Then you used it to dig a hole to their clockwork souls, and you ate up their hearts like soup on the way to keep your fat. Fat little mole, where will you dig next, I ask? You and your little silver spoon made from the silver spine of your children and wrapped in the hair of your dearly departed. Dear sweet Jesus, my darling Lily Beth, what are I become? What am I become?" And basically now, Mandus questions whether the world we live in is truly all bad, a world where he met the woman he loved, the woman he saw the good of mankind in. Has her death corrupted him beyond saving? Is he truly just like everyone else, a pig festering in the filth? In this area, a little bit of stealth action and puzzle solving to stop the steam from flowing allows us to proceed past the pigs and into a new area. But man, the screen effects in this area really started to hurt my head. Like, in real life, I actually started to get a headache at this point, which was kind of bad because of the constant blurriness and the constant coughing was just a bit too bad, so I had to take a bit of a break here. But we make our way through the machine and into a lift.
Stop you. I will save them.
You are too late. It begins. My work has begun. Kill them, my piggies. Kill them all.
The man who manipulated us commanding the pigs to kill them all. And now, some more quotes which have themes of the industrial beauty, with the comparison of people to offal and the focusing on processing waste, which aligns to the idea that society is a machine, one that discards or repurposes anything it can to basically make the machine more efficient. It also has themes of sacrifice and expendability, with the, people are that. People are very easy to sacrifice in the world itself. You kick workers out if they don't meet your standards and you replace them with someone new. And also we have a very clear theme of mechanization of flesh, which obviously is meant to link to the whole industrial revolution thing, where people were becoming more machine than man because they were basically treated like the machines they were, with life being basically reduced down to how efficient they are as workers and how much time they waste. Exiting the lift, we see the man pigs assaulting the streets of London, and we can find a diary entry in one of the houses. October 25th, 1899. No one misses the poor. Round up some orphans and the world will thank you for it. Disappear a whore and a gentleman applauds you. Colour beggar and a lady walks safely again. I hate them. I hate them more than any of the others. This privilege, this pretension, these so-called leaders, these pillars of society, these rich and fanciful. They wear their filth on the inside, but they are no less dirty. I have plans for them all. We will feed them, and then we will feed from them. With it detailing that Mandus's kidnappings for the creation of the man-pigs, almost trying to convince himself that this is what he wants to do. Now seeing the rich elites just like the poor that he once looked down upon, all filthy animals, him wanting them all dead, not discriminating who he will use for his pigs. Running through the streets with the man in the machine, asking us to fall to our knees and pray, saying everyone will be purified, but eventually we find a lift and descend, entering the pig line. The pig line have some very interesting themes around them. There is a theme of the search of knowledge versus the cost of the progress itself, with hints at lost wisdom, while the second and third depict humans' failure to use progress wisely, with us obviously using things like creating weapons of mass destruction are sometimes seen as our biggest failure instead of using that technology to create basically unlimited clean energy. Also, we have the idea of revolution and destruction, and industrial guilt and the apocalypse itself, with it believing that human progression will inevitably lead to the apocalypse itself. All these quotes taken together, it suggests a potential narrative of reckoning upon us, with a new machine, a new god, which you could link to the coming of Christ again. With Christ descending on earth, the rapture will occur and the reckoning will occur, with people basically being shunned down to hell and left behind or brought up to heaven. Eventually we find ourselves in the pig line, the place where the pigs are created, and we can make our way through finding another diary entry which is very interesting. October 25th, 1899. No machine blades for Fatty Bishop and Gluttony Harris. Prime cuts all for the sorting bins. And the very best as always, back in the dumbwaiter to the kitchens above, to be stewed and plumped and gravied and breadcrumbed, and returned to the table for the next night's feast. And not every night you see, although we have begun to increase the frequency of the final act. Unlike the poor, the rich will be missed, given time, but we will continue to spoil and ready them, and finer foods are now exported to mansions and lodges across London, and it has been noted in the times of late how rather overweight the great and the good are becoming, with their diets of fine wine and rich meat. Indeed, in Punch just last week, a cartoon showed Viscount Selwyn as a stuffed pig laid upon a platter for his peers to dine upon, a vicious and cowardly slander, no doubt, but he tasted delicious. This diary entry has themes of things like cannibalism as class revenge, the illusion of civilization itself, and the cynical nature that power creates with corruption. With the rich eating each other, literally, with them taking over their jobs, buying their companies, and basically just, you have this vicious cycle where no one really improves anything, they just sort of shift seats about and basically play musical chairs, which is an interesting idea, and it is a real thing. We see it in companies all the time. Exploring the area, we can damage the machinery to allow us to knock out the pig near the control area, allowing us to damage the machine even more. And as we proceed further, we find December 2nd, 1899, walking away from those temples, the small pile of stones under the rhododendrons, the skulls of innocents under the loose clod, headless rib cages in the cool stone behind the altars. 3,000 miles apart, I trace back my life to this instance. Rain channels eroded in ancient stone. The toxins are already in this damp. This falling water, I hack and retch and vomit into the sink and grasp the bowl with both hands and stare. There, in the plug hole, as clear as day, a toy spine, clockwork and intricate, like a child's spine. But clockwork, how could that be? How could a child's spine be made like clockwork? I washed it carefully and placed it on the mantelpiece. By the egg I laid myself, under the garden where the children's skulls are buried. I call it my Mexico. It outlines Mandus's time at the temple. It outlines Mandus's time at the temple, with him detailing how he buried the children's skulls in his Mexico, his place of power, his own temple. And this is going to be the power of the machine. His own Mexico, the place where he found the temple, which he saw as powerful as the gods themselves. But he laid an egg himself, which to me indicates his feelings of responsibility for the rock or the orb itself that he found. Or potentially something came back from the orb, like the shadow itself from the last game, but something different this time. And we now have to...
What a thrill.
I am here again, at the foot of those stairs, towards the red light of the nursery, sunset in the window like a bleeding sky, the horizon a slit throat, the seeping dark to drain the guilt from us. I am the jaguar-faced man. I am the feathered serpent. This priesthood is mine.
I can meet him, your great engineer. How marvelous. I must say, Mr. Manders, my excitement is almost unseemly.
Yes, I can see that. Step this way, Professor. I will be right behind you.
Manders? Manders, where the devil are you? I can't see a damn thing. Manders! We are the pig, Professor. We are all the pig.
But who is this engineer? And yes, Mandus turned the good professor into a pig, stating we are all pigs. Yes, no one is better than each other. And at the end of the long corridor, we see our children and now get teleported to a near area.
Illness now. Blue water runs in my veins, now I am clean. I carry the knife of this factory, the bowl of this mill. I am come to collect you from your fields and your furnaces. I will gather you into the white clouds. I will gather you to me, and I will take you home.
And at the end of the walk, we find two bodies and a lift. Two bodies. I wonder what they could be hinting towards. Descending a lift, we enter the Tesla area. Overall, these have again a feeling of the industrial cycle of consumption, how everything is consumed to basically push humanity forward. The class violence and hypocrisy between classes, how different classes basically clash with each other and are very hypocritical with them all having these same issues. And the idea of redemption and responsibility. Taking responsibility for your own actions and ensuring that you redeem your actions if you've done a bad one. And inside we get some more words from Mandus.
Hear me, Mandus. My gears are adjust. My steam is built. Soon I will spill that blue water and split the egg, the atom, my soul, and there will be a very great burning that we might make the world clean. Be proud, for this is your doing. Until you steeped me in the blood of your own, I was nothing but rotten architecture. You have made me, and I will make the world anew.
Well, it seems even the engineer here believes he needs to change the world which Mandus believed he needed to create. But who is this engineer, and why is he here, and where did he come from? At the bottom we get the diary entry, which in my eyes is the most important for the understanding of this game. 21st December 1899, if you should find this, then you already know all I would tell you. You already know what you have done, and what you must now do. Walking away from those temples, that small pile of stones beneath the rhododendrons, the skulls of innocents under the loose clod, headless rib cages cruelly torn asunder to expose their flowers, and in the cool stone behind the altars, 3,000 miles away, I trace my life to this instant. Rain channels eroded in the stringent stone, the toxins are already in this damp, this falling water, and in that instant, cradling my children's head in my palms, I knew that I had to unbuild what I myself had constructed, though even then it was a little more than a sickening dream. This machine is ever mine, and it falls to me to redeem it myself. Mandus realizes what he has done. He is wrong, and that he needs to unbuild what he has created. Redeem not only himself, but redeem the machine that he created as well, and make it a force for good. In this area, Mandus starts to question the engineer, with him asking the engineer about how the blood they spilled, but the engineer states that the first drops of blood that they both spilled together were only from Mandus' hands, inferring that he killed his own children, and hey, a new little piggy, but electric one. And this area is pretty simple. There is really not a lot to it. There's really not a lot to a lot of these areas in this game. You basically run through the area, do a very simple puzzle, and then run out of the area. That's it. And we enter the next area, Tesla 2. Overall, there is obvious themes of things like salvation, sacrifice, the idea of control and resistance between two classes, for example, and sacrifice and historical parallels. The Aztecs, for example, do come up again here, and it seems that Mandus very much believed in the idea of sacrificing blood to create some sort of control over the world itself and create a better age for humanity. Proceeding further, Mandus now begins to realize what he has done.
Only to save you. Only to spare you. I would have given my soul to spare you this world and its loan. Oh, my children. My children. What have I done? What have I become? I will put it right, my darlings. All of my wrongs will be righted. All of my sins washed clean.
And on the floor on the pathway, another diary dated 20th December 1899. Memories, they surfaced like bloated bodies rising to the scum of the Thames. I looked at them covered in the blood of their dead mother. Little piglets squalling in there, swaddling at my heart at once was filled with great love and a consuming hate. I could never have imagined at that point. Did my soul split, creating him? Was this the egg of my soul? The moment the great clock began to tick is the only path to redemption, to join us together again, to make myself whole, to close the great circle and take that madman into my heart once more and forgive him and myself as well. Memories are the thing in life which allow us to feel happiness from years back or pain from years back, a true double-edged sword which can give you unlimited strength to face anything in the future or fill you with pain and sorrow and hopelessness. And Mandus has let the latter his life. Pain and sorrow control every waking moment he was alive after the loss of his wife. He created this disgusting machine in front of him, feeding into the cycle, becoming the pig he very hates. He could very easily have made a better world for society and his sons, but he chose to feed into that cycle of selfishness, that cycle of consuming for the sake of consuming. But he wants to change that, and can he redeem himself? That is a question that will be asked. With Mandus approaching the engineer starts to sound, let's say, worried, trying to convince Mandus to let the plan go forward. But with the teleportation trickery and the electric pig, we come to a room with a heart in the center, and powering the room up, we can now interact with it. With it filling with a blinding light, we now enter
Lost in the dry paper soul of the world.
Madness, listen to your heart. You know you are with me. You created me to save the world. I am your friend.
With the engineer no longer able to stop us, we start to walk towards whatever is at the center of this machine.
Mandus, please, I am no more evil than you. We sought the same thing, to save humanity, ridding them of their painful, stupid, pointless lives. Mandus, stop. Think about what you are doing. For your children, Mandus.
Do not speak of my children, monster.
I did not kill your children, Mandus. You sacrificed them on the temple steps, knowing what the coming century would do to them. Your sons will drown, lungs full of mud and shrapnel on the banks of the Somme. You wanted to save them from the horror to come. That is the vision we shared. Everything we have built to avert this coming nightmare. You and I are one. We are the same. Our souls are entangled. We deserve to make them free.
And at the end of the hallway, we find a door opening into a temple which looks akin to that of the ancient Aztec temples.
I have stood knee-deep in mud and bone and filled my lungs with mustard gas. I have seen 2 brothers fall. I have lain with holy wars and copulated with the autumnal fallout. I have dug trenches for the refugees. I have murdered dissidents where the ground never thaws and starved the masses into faith. A child's shadow burnt into the brickwork. A house of skulls in the jungle. The innocent Mandus trod and bled and gassed and starved and beaten and murdered and enslaved. This is your coming century. They will eat the Mandus. They will make pigs of you all, and they will bury their snouts into your ribs, and they will eat your hearts.
And at the top, we now take the final step to stop the machine, sacrificing our own life to take full control of it, alongside our 2 children which we sacrificed at the very start. A machine built completely from fear itself, fear from what life has in it, a fear of death and grief.
God I had created died. At the end, when we were cold as the stone we had hewn his body from, when the lights were nearly all extinguished, we heard, in the silent distance, the man-pigs singing to one another. Then, as the last lights were gone, and we lay together in the deep, they drifted away, and all was silent. Such a silence I have never known. And as the dust settled on my open eyes, and we lay together embraced forever, I heard, miles above us, the sounds of the city turning over in its sleep. A church bell ringing out, and in that moment, the new century was born.
And that ends the game. Now you may be asking, why did Mandus make the machine? Well, the orb he found in Mexico foretold him a future where his 2 boys would die in the Battle of Somme, a battle in the First World War, and Mandus, so disgusted by the fact that humans would even steep to this level of conflict, believed he could create a world without this pain or future, and he did create a machine that would allow this future to be a thing, because he killed his 2 sons. He believed that his machine would have the power of the gods themselves, completely able to restructure the world and maintain life more effectively, and he would use the pigmen to basically ensure this. The pigmen would allow him to expand the machine's reach, with the pigmen being completely loyal to the machine itself, a machine which was born out of blood and sacrifice, literally. He sacrificed his 2 children to create the machine initially. This idea was only born due to Mandus not confronting his own grief, the grief he felt when losing the love of his life, his Lily, which made him believe he should never want to confront death again. But life is so precious because it ends. We love people so much because we know our time with them is limited. The time will eventually come to an end, and one day we will have to say goodbye to everyone that we love, and some of us don't even get that luxury. Mandus is not a good man. I am not going to defend his actions, they are terrible. Kidnapped and tortured people, turning them into the horrific beasts that we basically saw throughout the game itself. They are shells of their former selves, and they are what he saw them as, pigs. Mandus did this to fulfill a selfish desire, a desire to save the world in quotation marks, which some people would say is a good thing. But if you take the choice away from humanity, it is never a good thing. Humanity needs to be able to make their own choice. This is something I've seen comments about, for example, with Slay the Princess, for example, with the narrator choosing to basically make a world with no death. You cannot make a selfless decision from your own selfishness. It is impossible. It will always be a selfish decision because it is not based on your own goodwill. Mandus didn't want to make this world because he wanted to save people. He wanted to make this world because he didn't want to confront death itself. Despite people's best intentions, taking choice away from humans will always be a negative. Humanity needs the ability to choose its own way forward, and it needs the ability to basically create their own futures and make their own decisions. Because if you remove this choice, progress is impossible. We will never learn and we will never live. And even the world that Mandus was creating with the machine itself, I asked this: could you make a better world with a world built on the back of the loss of innocent life? What purpose does a new world serve if our children cannot live to see that world? If their sacrifice is necessary to create it, what is the purpose of it? While life can suck, as I've stated in the past, and everything inside of it is, not the best, it's best not to dwell on the bad things in life, and look down into the gutters and stare at the filth that we can see all around us. Because life is not only the filth that we see in the gutter. In life there is also a lot of light and good in the life and good in the world itself, and all it takes is a change of perspective. All you have to do is look up from the gutter and stare to the sky to see the stars in the night. And this, to me, is what A Machine for Pigs is trying to show us. It is trying to show us that despite how dark the times get, there is always light in the world and there's always happiness that we can find, no matter how dark and how disgusting the gutters of life become. Despite people we can view as disgusting, selfish pigs, we can also find people that we view as angels, as people that we view as perfect, which Mandus had in life. His wife, he believed she was perfect, and he never referred to her as a pig, the only person he viewed completely positively in life. Even his children he viewed in a negative light at times. And that's kind of the idea. Mandus created something so disgusting because he was so consumed with grief itself that he never confronted it, and he now realized the mistake he made and what he'd done. It is very much the same story of the first game. A man went down to the depths of hell and basically became true evil because of how scared he was of something that he was shown. Daniel was told he was going to die, and Mandus was told his kids would die in the First World War, and they basically took steps to basically try to prevent this. They did a selfish actions in the guise of a selfless act. Daniel believed that they were working on something to basically change the world with the orb, using his power to potentially create something amazing for humanity, and Mandus created the machine with the orb itself, a machine basically used to basically slaughter hundreds of humans. But in the end of the day, the two men in both these games realized the mistake of their ways and they tried to redeem themselves. They will spend the rest of their lives doing it, but we can't judge them for that. Only God himself can judge them for that, and Mandus basically let the machine itself kill him to basically stop it. And that is kind of the whole story of A Machine for Pigs. And with the story analysis done, I now wanted to tackle my general opinion on the game, because the story is good, don't get me wrong, but I have some problems with the game in general. So let's talk my opinion now. A Machine for Pigs is, how can I say this lightly? To me, it is everything that a follow-up game shouldn't be. It doesn't do anything unique with its gameplay, or even its story for that matter. It sort of retreads the same beats from the first game. It doesn't tell a unique story in itself. It doesn't do anything new to expand the game's overall gameplay loop, and the worst offense in my eyes of all, it takes key aspects from the first game which made Amnesia so unique as a horror experience amongst its peers. And before anyone says, but Croc, this game started out just as a mod for the first game itself, why was it sold and advertised as a full game experience? Because of this, and the fact that it is the same price as the Dark Descent nowadays, I am judging it as such. Even if this was a mod for the Dark Descent itself, I would be disappointed by it. The removal of the sanity mechanic as a whole can be passed off. You can replace it with something else, but they didn't replace it with anything, which made the game way too simple and way too boring in my eyes. The entire removal of things that you had to manage that the Dark had is terrible. It turns the game from a fun survival horror game with a lot of things to manage to basically what is effectively a walking simulator with occasional puzzles and the occasional jump scare. The fact the lamp is unlimited makes the game less scary in general. You will never not be about light, making the atmospheric horror less effective because light isn't scarce in this game. In fact, this game is actually quite bright in general. It is very well lit. The story, while interesting on the surface, fundamentally tells the same story in my eyes as the first game as well, which is kind of a shame. While it has different themes to it of industrialization and the cost of human progress, you kind of tell the same story with Mandus, a man who falls down to the lowest point of humanity, becoming the pig that he saw in others, and he did so many selfish actions and killed so many people. He now asks the question of if he can be redeemed, which is legit the same thing that Daniel asks in the first game. And to basically simplify the entire story, Mandus was a man who manipulated higher power into committing horrible acts in order to save something that he loved. This is the exact same thing that happened to Daniel. Daniel was manipulated by Alexander, Mandus by the orb and the vision it showed him. Mandus did it for his kids, Daniel for his life. They're very similar stories with different set pieces. That's what I'm kind of trying to get across here. But the question asked at the end of both games is, can a man who committed such crimes and acts of pure disgust, can he be redeemed to a man of good? The fact that Machine for Pigs ends with this central message for me really miffed me in general. I already didn't like the game for the fact of all the things that have been removed and the fact that the game is so much more simplified with less things to interact with, and the puzzles as well are a bit more simple as well, but the lack of any chase sequences as well, and the very few confrontations you have with the pigmen in general, and the fact that you could watch them despawn when they try to jump scare you, it just made the game overall a net negative to me. It made the game a poor atmospheric horror experience. The game is but a pale imitation to what the Dark Descent did. The game, while not the worst thing I've ever played, it did absolutely nothing to win me over. Where the Dark Descent brought me in and intrigued me and kept me on edge throughout the entire game, A Machine for Pigs just felt boring to me. The Dark Descent mastered balancing telling its story with flashbacks, diary entries, and actual in-game events. A Machine for Pigs fumbles this completely as well in my eyes, with puzzles basically being used for just puzzles. They're used for you to progress through the world, and you get very little story stuff in the game itself, with most of the story being told through diary entries, which aren't even voice acted as well, which it does get to a drag, and it kind of shows because I had to do a lot of reading of these diary entries in this video for you guys to understand the story in any way, shape or form. And some of these diary entries, which I haven't included in the video, are for good reason. To me, they just felt meaningless sometimes and didn't really add a lot. It feels like you could take multiple diary entries and basically simplify them into one diary entry. I understand wanting to have a lot of collectibles, but they need to have purpose in some way, shape or form. It also doesn't help that this 4-hour game takes 1 hour to get started and probably for about an hour and a half you're reading, which is kind of crazy in my eyes. If you didn't read the notes, you could probably beat this game in 2 hours, I'd assume. A Machine for Pigs, in my eyes, its scariest moments are what Dark Descent threw at you just to keep you on edge and just to keep you tiding over to the next big scare. They are A Machine for Pigs' scariest moments. They're simple, and I think that's the problem with this game. It started as an expansion or a mod, but it was sold and marketed as a full game, and it takes too much away from the experience for me to actually like it compared to the first game. I'm not saying the story's bad, it's good. I like the first game's story more, but man, games are so much more than their stories. They are complex. They have multiple media types interwoven into each other to create a full experience that no other media could potentially even tell or even think to create. And when you see people saying this game would be better suited for a book, you know something's wrong. This game, in my eyes, is not unfairly panned, it is not unfairly criticised, and it is not a hidden gem of a masterpiece that was misunderstood. People understood this game, the game is just not good. It is a pale imitation of the Dark Descent and what it did so well. It shows that the developers did not understand what made the first game so good as a horror experience, and that's a key point A Machine for Pigs is for me. It specifically fails at being a good and effective horror experience. It takes too much away and it doesn't add enough back in. Hey, thanks for watching, but thank you to all channel members, Marty Morris and Chelsea and Tyler. Support is greatly appreciated. If you enjoyed this video, please like, subscribe, whatever. I do hope to get some longer videos out, especially get back into the projects I promised to do. But yeah, enough waffling from me. See you around. Crocodile.